Imagine a heist. Not a bank robbery with ski masks and getaway drivers. No, imagine a heist that happens in broad daylight using nothing more than Excel spreadsheets and government forms. A heist where the robbers don't take money from a steel vault, but from the plates of hungry children. And the final score? A staggering $250 million. This isn't a movie script. This is what happened in Minnesota, right in the middle of the chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a story about good intentions twisted into a massive criminal enterprise, and about how one investigative reporter, Ryan Thorpe, decided to pull a single thread that unraveled the whole sweater. To really understand how this could happen, we have to go back to 2020. The world is shutting down. Schools are closed. The federal government is panicking because millions of children rely on school lunches for what is often their only reliable meal of the day. So, Washington does something drastic. They open the floodgates. They pour billions and billions of dollars into the federal child nutrition program. And most importantly, they relax the rules. They waive the requirements for on-site inspections. Priority, above all else, is speed. Just get the food to the kids. In Minnesota, a nonprofit organization called Feeding Our Future saw this loosening of the rules not as a humanitarian mission, but as a golden opportunity. Before the pandemic, they were a relatively small player. In 2019, they dispersed about $3.4 million in federal funds. That's a respectable amount for a local charity. But watch what happens next. As soon as the oversight vanishes, their numbers explode. In 2020, they claimed $42 million. By 2021, that number had skyrocketed to nearly $200 million. In just 2 years, this one nonprofit went from a minor participant to handling more money than the entire yearly budgets of some small states. They were claiming to feed tens of thousands of children every single day, operating hundreds of new meal sites across Minnesota. On paper, it looked like a miracle of logistics, a triumph of public-private partnership, but to a skeptical eye, it looked impossible. Thorpe, an investigative reporter digging into the data for the Minnesota Reformer and later the Manhattan Institute, did what good financial journalists do. He looked at the math, and the math didn't add up. He saw that Feeding Our Future was sponsoring sites that claimed to be serving 3,000, sometimes 4,000 meals a day. Let's just put that number in perspective. A very, very busy McDonald's might serve that many people in an entire day of nonstop work. But these weren't sprawling fast food franchises. These were small community centers, local daycare facilities, and sometimes just random office suites in suburban strip malls. Thorpe looked at the addresses on the forms and realized the basic infrastructure simply did not exist to cook, package, and distribute that volume of food. The data showed a frantic exponential growth that defied all economic reality. But looking at spreadsheets wasn't enough. Thorpe needed to see it with his own eyes. So he got in his car. He drove out to one of these supposed super sites, a location in a suburb called Burnsville that claimed to be serving thousands of meals daily to low-income children. He expected to see a massive operation. He was probably picturing delivery trucks backing into loading docks, the beep, beep, beep of reverse alarms. He expected to see long, winding lines of families, piles of trash from all the packaging, a small army of volunteers rushing around, trying to manage the crowd. Instead, he pulled into the parking lot. He turned off his engine and let the silence settle in. And he looked around. There were no trucks. There were no lines of families, no volunteers, no children. There was nothing. Just an empty parking lot and the quiet hum of an air conditioner right where a $250 million miracle was supposed to be happening. The whole operation was a ghost.
He drove to another site listed on the state's website. Same story. He went to a third. Silence. He realized that the miracle food program he was investigating was a mirage. The sites were ghost towns. But if there were no children eating, how were they getting paid millions of dollars? The mechanism was shockingly simple. It was a classic fee-for-service fraud. The site operators created lists of children, long rosters of names. Sometimes they used the real names of kids who had nothing to do with the program. Sometimes they just used algorithms to generate random ones. One roster famously had a list of names that were almost alphabetically perfect, a statistical impossibility in the real world. They submitted these fake invoices to the state. A nonprofit called Feeding Our Future took a cut for administrative fees, and the site operators pocketed the millions that remained. But the audacity of this scheme didn't stop at fake invoices. When the Minnesota Department of Education started asking questions and tried to stop the payments because of these massive red flags, Feeding Our Future didn't hide. They attacked. They sued the state of Minnesota. They accused the Department of Education of discrimination, arguing that the state was withholding funds because the nonprofit worked primarily with minority communities. It was a brilliant, cynical move. They weaponized the political climate of 2020 to freeze the oversight. A judge, seeing no hard proof of fraud yet, actually ordered the state to resume payments. The theft was practically court-mandated. While the lawyers argued, the money kept flowing. And it wasn't buying sandwiches. It was buying a lifestyle. When the FBI finally executed search warrants in early 2022, raiding offices, homes, and businesses across the state, they found the receipts. The money meant for hungry kids had been turned into a fleet of luxury cars, Porsches, Teslas, and Ferraris. It bought lakefront mansions in Minnesota. It bought real estate in Kenya and Turkey. It bought gold bullion and designer jewelry. The reporter's work didn't just uncover a local scam, it exposed a systemic failure. Sources later hinted that some of these funds might have even been routed overseas to finance political instability or terror groups like Al-Shabaab, though the primary focus of the indictments remained on the massive wire fraud and money laundering. In the end, prosecutors charged dozens of people in a $250 million scheme, marking it as the largest pandemic fraud case in the United States. Governor Tim Walz and his administration faced severe scrutiny for missing the warning signs and paying out hundreds of millions even after they suspected something was wrong. The Feeding Our Future scandal is a stark reminder of a simple truth. When you mix a crisis, a flood of easy money, and a lack of verification, you don't get aid, you get plunder. This story started with a reporter asking a simple question: does this math make sense? And the answer revealed a $250 million lie.